So you've been trying, you've been praying, you've been going to your appointments, taking your medications, doing everything you're supposed to do, and yet you still don't feel better, and your numbers are still off, and your body still feels like it's working against you. What if I told you that the problem might not be what you're doing, but where you're doing it? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share changed how I see patients, and it might help change how you see yourself. I want to start somewhere where you might not expect. According to scripture in Proverbs 13:20, and I love this verse so much. It says, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." Now, a lot of people read that and think, okay, choose better friends. That's fair enough. But I want you to actually zoom out for a second, because it's not just about your friends, it's about your environment. It's everything you're actually surrounded by. The people, the energy in your home, the conversations you're constantly having, the stress you're marinating in every single day. The scripture is saying the wrong environment doesn't just slow your growth, it can actually cause harm. And then Jesus in Matthew 13 tells this story. It's the parable of the sower, and it's where the farmer goes out to plant. It's the same seeds, the same hands, with the same intention every single time, but then the seeds land in different places. So some fall on the path, and it's like the hard packed ground, and they never even take root, and so birds just carry them away. And then some fall on rocky ground, and here's the part I want you to really catch. They actually spring up and they look promising, but there's no depth of soil, and the moment the sun beats down, they wither because there's no roots to hold them. Some fall on thorns, and then they grow, but then the thorns grow faster, and so they choke the plant out before it even bears fruit. And some fall on good soil. And those are the ones that produce a harvest 30, 60, 100 times that was planted. It was the same seed, 4 different environments, 4 completely different outcomes. The seed didn't fail, the environment did. And I need you to hear that like it's about you, because it really is. You are not a failed seed. You may just be trying to grow in the wrong soil. If this is already speaking to you, hit subscribe. I don't want you to miss what's coming on this channel. Okay, so let me bring this out of the spiritual and into the clinical, because in my years of practice, working in the ICU, in case management, and then in primary care, I've sat across from so many patients who were doing everything right on paper, showing up, taking their meds, really trying, and their bodies were still not responding. I'll share a story of one woman. I'll call her Margaret. She was in her late 50s. She's got high blood pressure. She was on 2 medications at the time, and every single month her blood pressure readings were high, and the medications were adjusted. The dose, the timing, the combination, nothing was really sticking. And then one day, someone finally asked her something that often gets skipped in a 12-minute appointment. They asked, "Tell me what a typical evening looks like at your house." And then she got really quiet. And then she said, "It's really loud. My son is going through something, and there's always something happening, and I never really stop." She wasn't failing. She wasn't non-compliant. She was living in a body that never had gotten the signal that it was actually safe to rest. Now, here's the part I want to explain, because your provider may not have had the time to break this down for you. When your environment is chronically stressful, your body releases cortisol. So that's your primary stress hormone. And cortisol does exactly what it's designed to do in a real emergency. It raises your blood pressure, it tightens your blood vessels, it keeps you on alert. And the problem is when your brain can't tell the difference between what's actual danger and then the kind of slow, low grade, like never ending stress that so many people are just living in every single day. And what I need you to hear, no matter what condition you're managing, elevated cortisol, sustained over time, drives up systemic inflammation. And inflammation, that is not just a blood pressure problem, it's a sugar problem, it's a heart problem, it's a pain problem, it's a mood problem. It shows up everywhere. It's essentially everybody's problem. And then I've had patients with diabetes whose A1C just wouldn't budge, not because of what they're eating, but because their body was stuck in a stress response that kept flooding their bloodstream with glucose. I've had patients with fibromyalgia, widespread pain that moves around, doesn't show up on any scan, who said their pain was always worse during certain seasons of their life. Not like the flu season, life season, high conflict season. And the research backs that up. Chronic stress actually changes how the nervous system processes pain. The volume gets turned up and it just stays there. And I've had patients managing anxiety and depression on the right medications, working with a therapist, doing all the work, still hitting a wall. And the moment we talked about their home environment, what they were absorbing every day, who had access to them, that's when things started to shift. And then I've seen patients with cardiac conditions recovering from a heart event, those whose rehab was going slower than expected. And when you sat with them long enough, you learned that they were going home to conflict, to caregiving with zero support, to grief they've never been given space to feel. Every chart had a different diagnosis, but the thread underneath, it was always the same. Their bodies were trying to heal in an environment that kept sending one signal: not yet, not safe, not now. I want to ask you something right now, and I want you to actually sit with it. What signal is your environment sending your body? I'll give you another example. I'll call her Jane. So she came in with fibromyalgia. So that's the widespread pain and fatigue. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't touch. She'd been to multiple providers, multiple opinions. By the time I met her, she was skeptical of the whole system. And honestly, she had every right to be. What I want you to understand about fibromyalgia, and this goes for anyone managing chronic pain, is that it's not imagined and it's not weakness. Chronic stress can literally rewire how the nervous system processes pain. So the brain's volume dial gets cranked all the way up and it stays there even after that original stressor is gone. And your body learns to stay braced. So Jane's body had been braced for a really long time, but then toward the end of that visit, she mentioned something almost in passing. She'd started going back to her church, not for an event, but not even for a program. It's just to sit, sometimes alone before anyone else got there. And she said one day, it's the only place where I don't feel like I have to be anything for anyone. Over the next few months, her pain started to shift. Not gone, but it's actually more manageable. Her sleep improved. She described feeling like she had more room inside herself. Same diagnosis, same treatment plan, but somewhere in her week, her nervous system finally got permission to exhale. And I want to be clear, it's not just a touching story. A major review published in JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, found that people who regularly participate in a faith community had a 27% reduction in all-cause mortality and a 33% reduction in the odds of depression. Faith community wasn't just good for the soul, it was measurably good for the body. If you're getting something out of this video, subscribe. There's so much more coming. Okay, here's something I want to be real with you about. As someone who has been on both sides of that exam room, your provider may genuinely care about your health and still have absolutely no idea what's happening inside your home. Not because they don't want to know, but because even when your provider is physically in that room with you, research shows that they're spending nearly half of that time on a computer screen, reviewing your chart, entering orders, documenting, managing all the EHRs. One study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, they found that physicians spent only about half their in-room time in direct clinical interaction with their patient, and the other half on the electronic health record. And when they leave that room, the documentation follows them. For every hour of FaceTime with patients, researchers found nearly 2 additional hours of desk work. There's no checkbox in the workflow for how safe does your home feel. There's no field for are you sleeping in a constant war zone of stress. So that piece of the picture, the environmental piece, gets missed. It's not always, but a lot. And here's what I want you to take from that. You may be carrying information about your own life that's never made it into the appointment room because nobody asked and you didn't know it mattered. Being prepared to share it in whatever way feels right for you can change what happens in that visit. That's the whole reason this channel exists. Now, I know some of you are already composing your comment, Florence. That's great, but I can't just change my environment. I have kids, I have responsibilities. I can't just leave. And I hear you. And I'm not telling you to walk away from your family or or act like your situation isn't complicated. What I'm saying is this: stress has convinced a lot of us that we have zero options, and that is a huge lie. You have more agency than stress has led you to believe, and sometimes creating distance from what's draining you looks like actually leaving. Sometimes it's a boundary you've been putting off setting. Sometimes it's turning off your phone even for just an hour earlier. Sometimes it's finally asking for help you've been too proud or just too exhausted to even ask for. And the goal is not a perfect environment. The goal is giving your body and your spirit just enough breathing room to start healing. I want to say something gently, but very honestly. In the ICU, I've watched people come in, not because of one dramatic moment. I mean, occasionally there was, but usually it was because of years of low grade, unchecked stress that nobody named, that the body just quietly kept absorbing. It doesn't usually announce itself. It's that blood pressure that never quite came down. It's a sleep that never quite came back, that the body was always in fight or flight and never got the signal that it was over. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because I've only seen what happens when someone finally steps out of survival mode, when that environment shifts even just a little bit and the body remembers how to breathe. And that can be you, and it's not too late. All right, I don't want to leave you with just a feeling. Let's make this practical. So tonight, before you go to sleep, 3 things that I want you to do. First, write down one situation in your life that consistently drains you. Not occasionally, consistently. Like one situation. That's your starting point. Second, identify one small shift in how you respond to it. Not fix it, just respond differently. Just a boundary, leaving the room a little earlier or asking for help. Just one thing. Third, consider whether this is something worth bringing into your next doctor's visit. Not every provider will bring it up on their own, but more of them are open to hearing it than you might expect. And the more prepared you walk in, the better chance that conversation actually happens. If you want help preparing for that appointment, I have something free for you. It's the doctor visit conversation card. It's basically 1 page, and it helps you organize your thoughts so what matters to you actually gets heard. The link is in the description. And if nobody has told you this lately, you are worth advocating for. Subscribe and keep coming back. We're building something here. So I want to close the way we opened, with what's true. The same wisdom that says walk with the wise comes from a God who designed you, all of you, to flourish. Not just survive, not just cope, but actually flourish. And sometimes that starts with one honest question. Is where I am helping me grow? And if the answer is no, that's not a failure. That's information. And it might be the most important thing you bring to your next appointment or your next prayer. You are made for good soil. Before you go, the doctor visit conversation card is free. It's in the description and it's pinned in the comments. And if today's video hit something real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you next time.
I need you to lift me up. Lord, I cannot do this on my own.